How's everybody doing? All right, welcome back everyone. It's Dr. A, economics professor at Northern Kentucky University, and today we're talking about budgets. It would be super helpful if you could like, subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend, especially if you find this information helpful. My goal is to hit 2,000 subscribers by December. Help me get to that goal so I can continue making these videos. All right, in this financial literacy series, I've kind of done things backwards. Started with thinking long-term about your long-term goals, like retirement, but it's time for us to think about your short-term goals. So the short-term goal that we all can start today is developing a budget. To me, a budget is a plan. It allows me to allocate every dollar I make to where it needs to go. It gives my money a purpose, and therefore it makes the cost of spending it in a different way clear to me. And in economics, we call that opportunity cost of spending. So it helps me stick to my budget if I know where my budget or where my money needs to go. So do you have a budget? Today, I want to run you through how I develop my budget, how I think about it. And in a perfect world, your budget is forward thinking. So get started with a budget as soon as possible and look forward to how you want to spend your money. So let's start budgeting. All right, so my first tip is to develop a budget before you actually start to take on expenses. This is a scenario that I see every May. As my students approach graduation, most are lucky to have a job waiting for them right after graduation. However, some of them start spending once they know they have a job, but before they actually receive their first paycheck. Whether it's buying a car, renting an apartment, wait as long as you can to make large spending decisions. The first mistake is people mistake their gross pay for their net pay. Gross is how much your stated pay is, and net is what you receive after taxes and withholding. For budgeting, we will focus on net pay. How much you have left over is a function of your tax rate, any 401 contributions, or any pre-tax spending that might be collected. It's hard to estimate that without knowing more about your personal situation, and this is not personal advice. We're talking about the general concept of budgeting. So calculate your net pay. For today's example, I will use someone bringing in a net pay of $3,000. $3,000 sounds good. So our budget is, or our net pay is $3,000 a month. There are two main ways to budget. The first, the 50-30-20 rule, and the zero-based budgeting method. Both are great for different parts of your life. I like the 50-30-20 rule for those of us starting off with budgeting. It allows you to see the major buckets in which you easily categorize your spending. However, as your income grows and as your spending becomes more intentional, you can start to shift towards a zero budgeting approach. This approach gives you more flexibility with how you spend your money. The way I look at it, it's kind of like learning how to ride a bike. First, you use training wheels that stabilize you, but also restrict your ability to maneuver. As you learn how to ride your bike, you can let go of the training wheels and start to ride in the way you like. All right, so step one we said was calculate your income. A budget needs to detail all income you receive. If you're a salaried employee, this is easy to calculate, but for others that have multiple incomes or hours that are not consistent, predicting your take-home pay becomes really difficult. I recommend taking your last 3 months of income and finding the average. If you've watched the video on tracking spending and tracking your income, you can do that easily using one of those apps. Or just go into your bank account and calculate it that way. See how many deposits have been made over the past 3 months and divide it by 3. This is why I recommend waiting before making large purchases. You need time to figure out what normal life as a young professional looks like. You will have new income, but I promise you, you will also have new expenses that you never thought about. As I said, for the purpose of this video, I'll focus on take-home pay. However, if you participate in your employer's 401k, health insurance plans, then this is spending that is usually happening pre-tax. So keep that in mind through this exercise. I will link to this sheet in the description. You can download it and plug in your own numbers. I've added some typical expenses that somebody might encounter. Some of them will apply for you, some of them won't, but at least you have a starting point. I have your income here. Once you enter your income, it will calculate the ratios of spending. So based on someone making $3,000 a month, this means that 20% or $600 should be allocated to savings, 50% or $1,500 towards needs, or we can call this bills, and 30% or $900 towards wants. These are things like going out and entertainment. The reason I like this approach is it gives you an idea of where your money should be going. Recent graduates usually don't have a reference point on how much they should be spending on rent or housing cost. According to this budget, you have $1,500 to spend on housing cost, insurance, car payments, utility bills, and your minimum debt payments. That includes your student loan payments. Depending where you are in the world, this might be doable or might be unrealistic. If you do find yourself in a situation where this spending is not realistic, then you might have to get roommates, or you might have to trade that car for a cheaper car. It might be necessary to make some changes. Obviously, if you're not spending your total $1,500, then this allows you to spend it on your other buckets, whether it's savings or your wants. This category of wants these are things that you can actually go without. They're easily adjustable and are a function of lifestyle, like eating out, clothing, setting money aside for traveling. These all go in this bucket. You have $900 a month to allocate towards this bucket. I put extra debt repayments here. This is a repayment above your minimum payments that were listed in your needs bucket. So if you're trying to tackle your debt faster, it's coming out of these $900. Finally, savings. This bucket stays at a minimum of 20%. That means $600 per month go towards building your emergency fund. Once you have that established, then into your investments. Remember, this is after-tax money, so I assume you're already taking advantage of your 401k savings, which, as I said, happens pre-tax. If you reduce your spending on the needs and wants, it allows you to allocate more towards savings. Starting off your life keeping this in mind will allow you to consider the opportunity cost of your spending. Once you hit your emergency fund goal, you can start to invest for wealth accumulation. How to invest is a whole other series of videos. For now, remember your goal is to get to saving 20% of your monthly spending. So you can start to create your own budgeting approach. A former student of mine modifies the 50-30-20 rule to what they call the 50-20-20-10 rule. The modification here is on that 30% towards wants. She split the 30% into 20% and 10% and split savings from investment. To learn more about her, you can find her on Instagram as The Female Financial. I love her content. Follow her and join her as she takes on the CFP certification. I recommend doing this budgeting exercise before you start off your career. Don't make big decisions without making a plan first. Having this information gives you an ease of mind on how to approach these decisions. If you've already started working and spending without creating a budget, it's not too late. You can get started, track your spending, and populate this sheet. See where you are off and what adjustments need to be made. Some changes might be easy. Adjusting your wants bucket is much easier than changing the money spent on needs. So start there, make the tweaks there. It's also easier to change how much you spend on clothing than it is how much you spend on rent that you pay. But those decisions might need to be made. Don't hesitate to make big life changes to stick to your budget. Finally, a budget is never final. I revisit mine monthly and make changes every quarter. Life changes, spending patterns change, just like the seasons change. So make sure to stay true to your budget and adjust it. But this way, I know what buckets I can change and which ones I cannot touch. Does this sound doable to you? I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment, subscribe, share, and like.